Momentum. President Biden passes the torch to the next generation of leadership, to Vice President Kamala Harris. She takes the torch and soars, surging ahead in many polls, in fundraising, breaking records, in grassroots support. The energy is palpable, and it's fairly historically unprecedented. On the other side, Donald Trump and his VP pick, Shady Vance, are crashing hard. You have Shady Vance, his past is being unearthed. It turns out he's changed his actual name at least 3 different times. His whole identity has shifted every few years. He becomes a different person. Reports also how he says that he was gay growing up, and then he became an extremist against the LGBTQ plus community. There are videos that Meidas producers and our editor-in-chief unearthed about Shady Vance, where he called childless cat ladies a big threat to democracy and other horrific misogynistic remarks. His approval rating is the only time a VP pick has come out with a net negative after the convention, no pun intended. I think it's a 33% approval rating, the worst in history. And also, there was a fact check done by the Associated Press. Shady Vance did not have sexual relations with that couch. Yikes. Never a good headline where you even have to deny that. Also, a deranged Donald Trump gave a speech in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he was grunting and doing the weird noises and talking about Hannibal Lecter eating your brains. Very strange. One of the positive developments is finally, with the media now over their constant and relentless attacks and ageist attacks on President Biden, people are tuning in and being like, yo, this is some weird freaking stuff. And we were like, yeah, it's very weird and unhinged and dangerous, but Trump's a weirdo. This whole MAGA movement, yes, they're misogynistic. Yes, they're wannabe fascists. They're also, it's just very weird and creepy behavior by them. We'll get into that. Don't you worry. Also, now with President Biden passing the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris, also attention focused on the economy and things like climate change, and issues are going back to the forefront, which is good. GDP growth exceeded all expectations in the second quarter, 2.8% GDP growth right now. Impressive stuff. We'll get into it all here on the MeidasTouch Podcast. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by my younger brother, Brett. Jordy is not going to be able to join us today. He's out doing some field work. He got that great interview with Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who is being talked about in the VP conversation. I know Jordy's doing some podcast panels and work out in where he lives. Brett, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I feel the vibes have shifted, folks. The momentum has completely shifted, and the pro-democracy community is on the offense for the first time. And it really feels different. I think we all feel it over the past few weeks. What did we all feel? We all came here and it was traumatic for us, right? We were doom scrolling one day after the next. It felt like bad news, the media being just relentless with their attacks. And suddenly it's like we've entered a completely new paradigm, a completely new universe here, where the media is actually starting to pay attention to the things that we have been paying attention to here at the MeidasTouch Network. And there's a whole lot of attention on Kamala Harris, who is really not just meeting this moment, but is really surpassing this moment in a big way. She has taken that baton from President Joe Biden, who so graciously handed it off, and she is sprinting here to the finish line like our lives depend on it, because frankly, they do. And I love this unity that we're seeing. It really feels like we're in the midst of this kind of European moment in a way, as we saw in these past few weeks. France, we saw these various factions come together to defeat the fascist movement by Marine Le Pen here in the United States right now. It feels like a version of that. I'm not going to say it's a one-to-one comparison, but it feels like you're seeing all these various pro-democracy factions, from these never Trump Republicans to progressives and everything in between, coming together and saying, okay, bet game is on and we are here to play. And man, I'm excited to get into everything because I know we have a whole lot to talk about, a whole lot to cover. Ben, where shall we start today?
One of the most memorable lines from Vice President Kamala Harris is, "We're not going back," right? Her campaign is about looking into the future. The baton, the torch, if you will, has been passed to from President Biden to Vice President Kamala Harris. And I just want to reflect, though, for a moment on what it means that we're not going back. And it's the Donald Trump drama and the weirdness and the wannabe fascism. As I always say, Trump's version of fascism is even more like pathetic and worse than like the pure form of fascism. Trump is a fascist fanboy. He looks up to the fascists and he does the cosplay WWE fascism. So he brings Hulk Hogan on stage and Hulk Hogan goes, "I'm the Hulkstein, you better vote for Trump." And, these are serious issues. People's rights and freedoms are on the line and we need to take this stuff serious. And in addition to being dangerous and a wannabe fascist, Trump is weird. Say it with me. Trump is weird. One more time. Trump is weird. And JD Vance may be weirder. I mean, look, Donald Trump goes around and he does these speeches where he goes, "So, have you heard the story about the woman who was weightlifting against a trans woman? Have you heard the story?" And she goes into the weight room. "Have you heard this one?" And then she goes, and he does that over and over again, multiple times during the speech. And when we've been covering this here at the MeidasTouch Network, I would be like, this is not normal. This is the strangest, weirdest stuff in the world. And he went to Charlotte, North Carolina, and he did the thing. And then he talks about Hannibal Lecter, never talks about policy, never what we can do for the American people, how we can deliver. It's always like, we're going to, Hannibal Lecter, he'll eat your brains. First, let me show you the grunting clip. Let's play this one first.
18 years, a quarter of an ounce and a quarter of an ounce on the barbells, right? A quarter of an ounce, little tiny thing. And she goes, Olympic tryouts, mom and dad.
And then he does that a lot. Like, here's another clip of him doing that. Just show you this one.
Yeah, turn off your cameras for a second, okay? Boy, that's a lot of cameras. Man, no, they get it up and they can't quite do it. Mom, I'm sorry, Mom.
What's the joke? I mean, what are people even like? There's nothing even funny about that at all. And then he does the story about Hannibal Lecter. And there was some astute observations out there that perhaps Donald Trump thinks an insane asylum is political asylum. And that's why his mind, when he talks about immigration,
that 100% checks out. Like 1,000%.
Talk about Hannibal Lecter and an insane asylum eating your brains. Here's what Donald Trump says. Again, he talks about, he gives a speech. Part of his stump speech is he talks about an imaginary friend he has called Hannibal Lecter, the fictional cannibal who eats brains. He doesn't connect it to anything. Then he just moves on to the next topic. Here, play this.
Prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They go crazy when I say the late, great Hannibal Lecter. Okay, they say, why would he mention Hannibal Lecter? He must be cognitively in trouble. No, these are real stories. Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lamb. He's a lovely man. He wants to have you for dinner. He'd like to have you for dinner.
Okay,
these are real stories.
Could we not go back to that? At the MeidasTouch Network, we created a short that's gone crazy viral. It's called "We Are Not Going Back," and it's based on one of the lines from Vice President Kamala Harris's speeches that she's been given about we're not going back. Just remind everybody what an unhinged, deranged person Donald Trump is. And please, let's not go back to that. Let's move forward, please. Play the new MeidasTouch short.
Donald Trump wants to take our country backward, but we are not going back. We are not going back.
The tear gas was used to remove peaceful protesters from Lafayette Park.
The president setting up this photo op for himself, dispersing peaceful protesters. He's holding up a Bible.
This is a mass grave being dug for coronavirus victims at New York City's Potter's Field.
They were peaceful people. These were great people. The love in the air, I've never seen anything like it.
A group on one side and you had a group on the other. Very fine people on both sides.
You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy.
I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade.
We are not going back.
By the way, when you support the MeidasTouch Network at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, you are helping us build out our editorial team. You're helping us build out shorts like that. And in a little bit, when we talk about some of these J.D. Vance stories, all the big J.D. Vance stories were actually stories about videos that either the MeidasTouch editors clipped or unearthed. The ASIN clip that he pulled of J.D. Vance talking about Diet Mountain Dew, and the clip Ron Filipkowski unearthed where J.D. Vance attacked childless cat ladies as the threat to democracy. And those clips have now been talked about across all corporate media and just into the not just political, but pop culture zeitgeist as well, to show what a disgusting human being J.D. Vance is. Getting into some of these moments as well from Donald Trump's horrific speech in Charlotte, North Carolina. It seems also to be getting to Donald Trump that he no longer controls the framing of this election. The framework now is looking to the future and the prosecutor versus the felon. And you, Donald Trump, you're the felon. Play the clip.
So think of it. They get me to that position, and then their campaign says, I'm the prosecutor, and he is the convicted felon. That's their campaign. I don't think people are going to buy it.
I think they are going to buy
it. Brett, I think people are going to buy it.
Yeah, well, maybe because it's the truth. It's just the plain truth right there in black and white. You are the felon. She is the prosecutor. She actually is law and order. You are a complete criminal who has been criming your entire life. And, there's something additive now about Donald Trump when he does all these things, right? Like in the past, he would say all these deranged things and we would say they're deranged, but there's something about it now that Kamala Harris is the nominee, that they've taken on this extra derangement. I can't explain it. Just the contrast is so deep. And I think it's probably because Donald Trump, before this prosecutor versus felon narrative was enshrined, he made his whole campaign about Biden being old. That was his entire push. And frankly, that was the media's entire push. Can this guy serve? Now, all that messaging that Trump and the RNC, the Republican Party, spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on pumping out into the public is now being used against Donald Trump because it now just fits him. And they are caught completely flat-footed. They have no idea how to handle Kamala Harris. You see Fox just freaking out, trying to figure out their messaging. On some shows, they say, Kamala Harris, she's far too liberal, San Francisco liberal. On some shows, they say, she's to the right to Biden. She's too far right. And you're like, what are you talking about? They cannot settle on a message because nothing is resonating. And they've lost the culture. They've lost the news cycle. They've lost the momentum. They've lost the messaging. And you're starting to see the bottom fall out in all aspects because of that.
And they've lost the VP because, wow, is J.D. Vance just getting absolutely trashed? Like the worst possible pick. And it also goes to one of the things we talked about. It's Donald Trump's decision-making. he always makes the worst decisions. You go back to COVID, how he handled things like a miracle. It's all going to go away. I firmly believe, and I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here, if Hillary Clinton was in office, the moment there was any knowledge about what was taking place in China and what was happening and the start of this virus and the start of what could be this horrific pandemic, she wouldn't have covered it up and said, like a miracle, it's going to go away. America would have led. We would have sent our best scientists. She would have been transparent. We would have started with the vaccines then. Public education would have started right away. And I just think it would be an entirely different situation. So when people are always like, oh, well, the economy was doing, we shouldn't factor in the last year, or let's factor in the pre-pandemic.
What do you can't factor in the last year? You get a mulligan? I know he gets mulligans in golf for all of his hits. We saw that video of him putting that Ron also put together where he couldn't sink a putt and he would take all the mulligans. You don't get a mulligan on a year of your presidency, though. I'm sorry. And I've said this before on the show, but you know damn well if Hillary Clinton was there and took all those steps and say there was 1/20th of the deaths from COVID, they would have impeached her. I guarantee it.
They would have not just impeached her. They would have put her in prison for life. Then they would have argued the exact opposite arguments about absolute immunity. They would have taken the exact opposite position. Oh, we're conservative. We don't believe in absolute immunity, because they are sociopaths. Could you imagine for a moment if former President Barack Obama was in charge during the pandemic and he said, well, everybody, here's what I want you to do. I think it would be smart if we all just injected ourselves with some bleach. So I want you to take a look at some horse tranquilizers as well. Hey, everybody, what do you think about my ratings? The ratings are pretty good now, right? I love these ratings, right? Like, could you imagine if Obama said the things? They would have locked Obama up for the rest of his life. They would have charged him with mass murder, and there would be debates whether or not there would be the death penalty. That's what would have happened if Obama was in office during and handled it the way Donald Trump was. But I think if Obama was in office, he wouldn't have handled it that way. And anyway, I digress. My point is Donald Trump makes bad decisions. That was the point I was trying to make. And and JD Vance just goes to show you what you couldn't have picked a worse person. Who are you, JD Vance? Who is this person? Like, when you get headlines like that, pull the headline up. This is an Associated Press headline. No, JD Vance did not have sexual relations with a couch. Okay, that is what's being put out there by the Associated Press.
How do you fact check that?
How do you fact check that? Well, especially I will accept for the sake of argument. Stop it. I will accept for the sake of argument that he did not have sexual relations with the couch. However, who are you? He fakes that he's a hillbilly and that he grew up in Appalachia. He did not. He grew up in the suburbs of Cincinnati because we know his neighbors have spoken out. His name is not JD Vance. His name was James Donald Bowman. He grew up in the suburbs of Middleton, Ohio. He wasn't poor. He went to Yale. He changed his names multiple times from James Donald Bowman to Jimmy Hamill. And then right when he got married, he changed his name to JD Vance. He's flipped his entire personality. And, you know, you go back and look at some of these interviews he gave when he became like the media darling because he was the anti-Trump when Trump was like trying to appeal to hillbillies. So they brought him on in the media to be like, look, this is the path that a hillbilly can take, you know, and then he would go on there and just speak in all these stereotypes about people from Appalachia. And he would say, well, you know, here in Appalachia, and people from Appalachia, like, who are you? You're not even from here, you fraud. So he made his whole initial career and sold books lying that he's from Appalachia. Like,
he's quite literally a venture capitalist who lived
from Silicon Valley
and worked with Peter Thiel. Like, you don't get more opposite of this. And just that idea also that you have Donald Trump, this like slumlord who has ripped people off and defrauded people his entire life. And then you have this venture capitalist, J.D. Vance, who made his money along with Peter Thiel and all these bizarre people in Silicon Valley trying to go out there and act like they are the everyman for people. I mean, I think that's like behind the couch story, which is a false story from what we know. But behind all this, the thing that breaks through, in my opinion, and the reason why this stuff is all sticking to him,
the couch story sticks.
I was going to make a gross joke. I'm going to hold it back about sticky couches. Is because he comes off as such a phony. I just said it.
You mean, yeah.
Yeah, I could have been a lot more graphic, I assure you. But the fact is, he comes off like a fraud. He comes off like a complete stop it. He comes off like a phony. He sounds like a phony. And so when you hear all these stories, when you hear the contradictions, when you hear what he said about Donald Trump, like a couple of years ago, not even like, we're not talking about ancient history here, like a few years ago compared to now, you're like, oh, this guy is a fake. This guy is just a fake. He stands for absolutely nothing.
He grew a beard and then changed his entire personality. Here's an article from The Advocate. They did a good story on J.D. Vance, how J.D. Vance went from thinking he was gay and changing his name twice. Third one was J.D. Vance, to being an anti-LGBTQ plus extremist. And it talks about how he grew up and he told people he was gay and he felt that he was gay. And then they like sent him to a preacher, and then all of a sudden he became anti-LGBTQ plus. And part of his whole thing is he changes personalities and identities, over and over again. And I'm just thinking too right now with Donald Trump picking J.D. Vance, and Donald Trump's all about like image, that like now it's rubbing off on Donald Trump. That
just like J.D. Vance was
just a J.D. Vance exactly. Exactly. So you could put the brothers on a podcast, but sometimes you can't take the brothers out of the brothers sometimes, even when we're live on the MeidasTouch Podcast. I want to show some of the viral clips of J.D. Vance. I want to talk about Vice President Kamala Harris's recent speech, her soaring fundraising numbers, her soaring poll numbers. We'll talk all about that and more. Let's just take our first quick break of the show.
As you know, I'm a dad, and as the days go on, I'm learning that it's incredibly important what we give our children. Now, typically, children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise. They're filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy junk growing kids should frankly never eat. That's why Hiya was created, the pediatrician-approved superpowered chewable vitamin. Now, while most children's vitamins are filled with 5 grams of sugar and can contribute to a variety of health issues, Hiya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. Yet it tastes great and it's perfect for picky eaters. Hiya fills in the most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full body nourishment that our kids need with a yummy taste that they love. Formulated with the help of nutritional experts, Hiya is pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, and many others to help support immunity, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, bones, and more. It's non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free, and everything else you could imagine. Now, Hiya is designed for kids of all ages and sent straight to your door so parents have one less thing to worry about. Like I said, I'm a dad and I want to make sure that I give my child the best possible vitamins, and that's why I'm so happy that I've come across Hiya Health. The ingredients are amazing and I don't have to worry about sugar or gummy junk because Hiya Health is made without that stuff and it's still able to taste great. Now, we've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Now, to claim this deal, you have to go to hiyahealth.com/Meidas. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to hiyahealth.com/Meidas and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults.
It's hot outside and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather, so you get better sleep every night. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than the sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, cause breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/Meidas to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo Meidas, MEIDAS at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle, TRYMIRACLE, trymiracle.com/Meidas, and use the code Meidas to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Meidas to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
Thank you to our sponsors right there. You can support those sponsors. The link is in the description area below. Also, the MeidasTouch YouTube channel is surging as well. We're picking up a lot of subscribers. Thank you for sharing the word with friends, family members, coworkers, neighbors. Let's try to hit 3 million subscribers. Heck, in the past 48 hours, over 23 million people have watched the MeidasTouch YouTube channel, placing it ahead of CNN, MSNBC, and Fox on all digital platforms. And that's thanks to you, Meidas Mighty. You have built the media network that you've always wanted, and it is an honor for us to just play a small part in your community. So thank you very, very much. All right, JD Vance viral moments, because with your support, Meidas Mighty, we've been able to build out an incredible editorial team. And take a look at some of the news stories that they broke recently. The first one comes from our senior digital editor, who literally sets the agenda of what corporate media and what others are talking about in pop culture. His name is Acyn. You may have seen him on X and other social media platforms, ACYN.
Give him a follow for sure.
He clipped this right here. This was a speech that JD Vance gave. It was so disastrous, where JD Vance was talking about drinking Diet Mountain Dew. Play the clip.
It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys. But
I love you guys. I love you guys.
I have secondhand embarrassment from watching that.
The biggest phony fraud weirdo. They're weird. So here's a clip that from JD Vance in an interview from 2021 with Tucker Carlson. Our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, unearthed this clip right here, where JD Vance says that Kamala Harris and other childless cat ladies are miserable with their lives and that they are really harmful to American democracy. Here, play this clip.
What he's saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future.
So JD Vance is hiding who he really is. I think it's obvious what's going on there. I don't have to get deeper than that. But his self-loathing, or whatever it is, that he's taking it out in such misogynistic ways, because he thinks that makes him look like an alpha. No, it makes you look like a schmuck. It makes you look like a moron.
It makes you look
weak.
Makes
you look
like
misogynistic and weak and a loser. And by the way, there are tons of posts where he's talked about childless cat ladies to mock women. And look, we have people now like Jennifer Aniston who don't usually get involved in politics at all, and they are posting about, JD Vance or Shady Vance's, behavior right here. This is horrific misogynistic behavior, and I think one of the things too, as these MAGA Republicans have always tried to talk about like manhood and being manly, and they've, that whole kind of movement that they've pushed. I think it is important though to kind of really push back on that whole idea, and I'm not one to like talk about, oh, this is masculine and this is that. But the reality is that if you want to talk in those terms, let me be very clear. A real man doesn't belittle people and bully people, right? Real men don't mock people who are disabled. Real men don't talk about women in that way. Real men are supportive and encouraging and help persons with disabilities. You don't attack veterans and call them suckers and losers. You don't go on stage and behave the way Donald Trump does at all. And so these people like JD Vance are weak, and they're masquerading and doing this WWE cosplay fascist act. And then they bring on people like Hulk Hogan, who go, oh yeah, I'm Hulk Hogan. It's like just enough of this crap. Going back to the video we created at the MeidasTouch Network, we're not going back. Do not go back to that crap. I don't care what political affiliation you have, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. This behavior is not either. This behavior that we're calling out is uniquely MAGA, which is uniquely Trump. It's made in the image of a really weird, deranged cult leader sociopath, which is why mainstream conservatives, which is why independents, which is why liberals, which is why progressives, which is why people who are other things than MAGA watch this network, and why we're supporting democracy and just calling that behavior out. By the way, here's JD Vance in another clip saying that Americans without children should really have less rights, and they really need to face the consequences for their actions. Here, play this clip.
When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice. Now, people will say, and I'm sure the Atlantic and the Washington Post and all the usual suspects will criticize me about this in the coming days. Well, doesn't this mean that non-parents don't have as much of a voice as parents? Doesn't this mean that parents get a bigger say in how our democracy functions? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he's a disgusting weirdo. I mean,
here's the thing, though. He's not a real person.
Yeah.
Right? He's a character. It's no different than Hulk Hogan, right? He is playing a portrayal of a type of human that he believes appeals to Appalachia. He is a Silicon Valley tech bro who made his money working for Peter Thiel, who went back to Ohio and created a sham charity that exploited people who were suffering from the opioid epidemic. He funded research from Purdue Pharma by hiring their researchers and gave no money to people who were actually suffering from the
I would bet the exact person who on paper, if you put that person and just said, oh, look at this Democrat with those credentials to all these MAGA people, they would hate this guy. And it's such an abhorrent thing to say. And it's something that I think resonates with so many women. I think that's why it's really hit a nerve with so many people, because everybody knows women in different situations, in different circumstances, who are going through their own issues. And for him to say that they're almost like less than a person is one of the most kind of despicable things imaginable. And that's why I think it's important that we constantly just hammer this drumbeat of these people are super weird. And also the fact that these people seem to hate our country and the people who are in our country. Like, how many times during these Trump rallies, during Trump's statements when he's on Fox, when JD Vance goes out and says, how many of their comments are not policy related and are just either that weird grunting that we played, or are them saying how horrible the United States is. Like just, this is the worst country. This is a country in decline. It's terrible. It's horrible. And you have Democrats on the other hand right now. And you see this with Kamala Harris presenting an optimistic vision out there on the campaign trail, and others who are saying this guy is trashing our nation every single day. We want to improve our nation, but he actually hates our country and wants to continue to regress in this country. And Jordy, who's not here, has been very busy today in Pennsylvania, going to various events. Jordy spoke at a little conference earlier in front of a crowd, which is super cool, representing the Meidas Mighty. And he also had an opportunity to link up with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is here. Of course, Josh Shapiro is being talked about quite frequently as a potential vice president pick for Kamala Harris. And Josh Shapiro rebutted all of this anti-American sentiment that's coming out of people like Donald Trump and Vance and the Republican Party. And I think he really summed it up quite well. Here is Jordy with Governor Josh Shapiro.
So Trump keeps bashing America in his speeches and his social media posts. What's your response?
I'm sick and tired of it. And I got to tell you, he is ill-informed. I mean, consider this for a minute. We are producing more energy than ever before in this country, which gives us more freedom and more opportunity. Think about this. We have the fastest growing, strongest economy in the world, and we were kicking China's ass for the first time in generations. Think about this. This morning in America, more people went to work than ever before. This is the greatest country on earth. And Trump, you got to stop shit talking America. We got to start standing tall and being patriotic and showing how much we love this amazing nation. I am sick and tired of him down talking, shit talking this country. And instead, we got to stand up, stand tall, and be proud to be American.
That's what I want to see in an American leader, somebody who actually talks positively about the country and the future of the country. And I think speaking about America in those terms is powerful. And I think finally, it almost seems like a lot of folks might be watching the MeidasTouch network out there, because we've been hammering home this drumbeat constantly, as you've heard throughout the show. And for those who've been listening for a while, for a long time, that not only are these people dangerous, they're so freaking weird. These are some weird, weird, weird people. And we saw Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. He was pushing that same messaging, that these are some weird, dangerous folks.
These are weird people on the other side. They want to take books away. They want to be in your exam room. That's what it comes down to. And don't, get sugarcoating this. These are weird ideas. Listen to them speak. Listen how they talk about things. Listen to how your previous guests were right. Like you said, they've told them that they shouldn't talk about race. They can't help it. It is built into their DNA because there is no plan. There's no healthcare plan. There's no healthcare plan. There's nothing to do on this. They want to take away our alliances and leave Russia to do whatever they want. Look, they are bad on foreign policy. They are bad on the environment. They certainly have no healthcare plan. And they keep talking about the middle class that, as I said, a robber baron real estate guy and a venture capitalist trying to tell us they understand who we are. They don't know who we are.
Can't say it any better than that. These are some weird people, man. These are some weirdos. These are some weird, weird, weird people. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is out there on the campaign trail now every day, sometimes doing one event, two events, three events, making statements. We're trying to cover as many of the Kamala Harris events as possible, by the way, live on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss them. But earlier today, Thursday, when we're recording this live, Kamala Harris gave the keynote address at the American Federation of Teachers Union Convention. And part of her pitch is something also that we've been pushing a lot on this network, that we need to be talking about freedoms and the freedoms that are at risk, and that these Republicans are trying to claw back your freedoms. And I think the vice president summed this up quite well in her keynote address.
In this moment, we are in a fight for our most fundamental freedoms. And to this room of leaders, I say, bring it on. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Kamala Harris also speaking about her support for same-sex marriage, something that you could see clips of her going way back to her time working in California, ensuring that same-sex couples have these fundamental freedoms. And she was speaking about her record as well with the teachers today.
All the while, these extremists also attack the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. They passed so-called don't say gay laws. Now I have to tell you, so many of you may know, in 2004, on Valentine's Day weekend, I was one of the first elected officials in the country to perform same-sex marriages. So here's the thing. It pains me so to think 20 years later that there are some young teachers in their 20s who are afraid to put up a photograph of themselves and their partner for fear they could lose their job. And what is their job? The most noble of work, teaching other people's children. And God knows we don't pay you enough as it is.
Freedom. It's a powerful concept. It's a fundamentally American concept. And when you lay it out in terms like that, I think it has a lot of weight behind it. And Kamala Harris is also speaking about the importance of labor, the importance of unions in the United States. Here's what she had to say.
But there is more that we must do. President Joe Biden and I promised to sign the PRO Act into law, and I promise you I will keep that promise. Because when workers join together and demand what is fair, everyone is better off. Understand, and I say this everywhere I go, understand, you may not be a union member, but you should thank unions, and I'm looking to the cameras in the back of the room, not them, but the people who might be watching. You may not be a union member, but thank unions for the 5-day work week. For the 8-hour workday. Thank unions for sick leave and paid family leave and vacation time. Because the fact is, unions helped build America's middle class. And when unions are strong, America is strong.
Very, very, very powerful stuff from Vice President Harris. And, you know, it's great seeing her on the campaign trail and being able to message things this effectively and reaching these audiences and the enthusiasm. One of the things I didn't show you in playing these clips is every time she speaks in front of a crowd now, the first like 5 minutes is people applauding. It's fired up, enthusiastic supporters in packed rooms, excited to see her. And unlike the energy that you see at these Trump rallies where they're inspired by hatred and it's all about how much they hate people and hate that other people have rights aside from them, this is like about love. This is about positivity. These are inspiring movements that we are seeing. And so I want to again give a huge shout out to our incredible editorial staff. I mean, those clips that Ron Filipkowski posted that have gotten tens, if not hundreds of millions of views around and have been on headlines all over the place. I know they played those clips on shows like The View and The Today Show, and they were everywhere. And the clips that Asen are doing, we love that we are able to expand our staff here, our incredible team of researchers and editors. And so for that, I got to thank you, the Midas Mighty. I got to thank all of you watching this for making that possible. And if you want to keep us going, keep allowing us to continue to grow and hire more people and do more research and get all this stuff out there, you could support us at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. That's patreon.com/MEIDASTOUCH. We also have a lot of cool kind of benefits there, exclusive content. We do after shows after all these shows that we post there. We do monthly Zoom chats with everybody where we answer your question over a private Zoom link. It's pretty cool stuff. So check that out. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I'd also be remiss if I didn't give a huge shout out and a thank you to the moderators. Thank you to the mods who are working. I know the channel is growing so quickly, and these chats could sometimes be I know a lot of people say, slow down the chat. It's already slowed down. I promise you it's already slowed down. But you could thank the incredible team of moderators that we have who are making sure that the trolls are put in their place and that we have a nice, safe, positive environment for all of you who watch this live on our YouTube channel. And for those who watch on our YouTube and don't subscribe to the audio podcast, make sure you go and add the MeidasTouch podcast on any audio podcast platform. It is free and it really helps a lot. If you want to leave a 5-star review, that helps a lot soon. We got a lot more to talk about on this episode of the MeidasTouch podcast. But first, let's go to our final break. Don't go anywhere.
Cat food has been the same forever. It's time for cat food to move into the 21st century. Don't you agree? That's why you've got to try Smalls. It's time to make kibble a thing of the past. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why veterinarians.org rates Smalls 10 out of 10 for ingredient quality. Now, our cat's favorite flavor is smooth fish, and our cats prefer Smalls way more than the previous cat food. I legitimately did a taste test. I didn't actually eat it myself, but put 2 bowls side by side, and they immediately went to Smalls. Smalls was started back in 2017 by a couple of guys home cooking cat food in small batches for their friends. A few short years later, they've served millions of meals to cats across the country. I feel better knowing I'm feeding my cat real food, not burned kibble. I can finally open a packet of cat food and not get nauseous. I actually recognize the ingredients in a packet of Smalls food. So after making the switch to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvement. That's great. That's a big deal. The team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. Now is the time to make the switch to Smalls, so head to smalls.com. It's easy to spell, SMALLS.com, smalls.com/Midas, and use the promo code Midas at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use our code Midas for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code Midas for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. Go to smalls.com/Midas.
Hey everyone, I want to share something that's really made a difference for me when it comes to enjoying a night out with friends. It's called ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on hitting the gym, enjoying a brunch, or just getting some important work done without worry. I'll be honest, I was a bit skeptical of ZBiotics at first, but then while hanging out with my friends at our favorite bar downtown, I decided to give it a try, and let me tell you, it really works. The first time I tried pre-alcohol was during a friend's wedding weekend. I had my first drink of the night, a delicious old-fashioned, by the way, right after taking ZBiotics. The next morning, I was up early, feeling great, and ready to join the rest of the wedding party for breakfast and activities. It was a total game changer. With vacations, weddings, birthdays, and reunions, there's so much going on this summer. Get the most out of your plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/Midas to get 15% off your first order when when you use Meidas at checkout. Pre-alcohol is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Meidas, M-E-I-D-A-S, and use the code Meidas at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times.
Welcome back. Thank you to our sponsors. In the description, you can get the links to support those sponsors. It's one of the ways to help grow this network, and Jordy does a good job vetting them, trying out the products. I do as well. Brett does. So we're glad that we can curate some really cool products and services. It also helps build this network. You know about patreon.com/MeidasTouch, and also those emojis that you see in the bottom of the chat. Hit the $sign. Those are YouTube memberships, which are separate and different than Patreon. You could gift memberships to people as well who are also here watching this live. And thanks to everybody who's gifted and got those memberships. But thank you to everyone who just spreads the word about the MeidasTouch Network as well, to people in your lives, friends, family members, coworkers, colleagues, neighbors, just anybody you know. We will expand this network just by letting others know, and thank you for helping do that. Let's compare Donald Trump's speech in North Carolina, unhinged, deranged, with President Biden's very solemn, important address in the Oval Office. Part of President Biden passing the torch to the next generation of leadership with Vice President Kamala Harris also showed the contrast in the symbolism between President Biden's selflessness and support of our democracy and Donald Trump's utter selfishness in trying to cling on to power through an insurrection. And so President Biden's speech, I thought, was powerful, but let's contrast it. Here's what Donald Trump said first. At the North Carolina and the Charlotte event. I call them traveling fascist circus events. Donald Trump was saying that he was supposed to be nice, but he's going to be very mean now. That was his point. Let's play this clip.
You know, I was supposed to be nice. They say something happened to me when I got shot. I became nice. And when you're dealing with these people, they're very dangerous people. When you're dealing with them, you can't be too nice. You really can't be. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice. Is that okay? They want me to be nice.
Compare whatever the heck that was to President Biden in the Oval Office, talking about how much he reveres the office of the presidency, but he loves this country more. Show the contrast.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. In this sacred space, I'm surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington, who showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think is more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people. And we can never forget that.
Contrast that to Donald Trump talking about the ratings of the Republican National Convention and lying that they were good ratings. They were actually down, in some cases by close to 50%, some days 28%. When you compare Donald Trump's speech to John McCain, it was about 44.7% fewer viewers saw Trump's convention.
So why, let's just back up for a second. Why are you talking about ratings in your campaign stump speech? Your stump speech is the speech that you go around, for those who don't know, you go around city to city. You have basically the same speech that you give to different cities. You might tweak it here and there to make it location specific, but you're supposed to be delivering your policies for how you want to better the lives of Americans. And Donald Trump spent his entire, like a large portion of his speech talking about the ratings of his convention, which weren't even very good, complaining about Kamala Harris, her crowd size, and that he actually gets bigger crowds than Kamala Harris, and that the media is fawning over her. How dare they? How is that making the lives of anybody better? Once again, it's weird. It's weird. And here's that moment, and he's bragging about Hulk Hogan, and just watch.
No, they're great. They're great people. And we had a great convention. We had a convention that broke all television ratings. How good was the Hulkster, right? Oh. And Kid Rock called. He wanted to be a part. He was fantastic. But they were all fantastic. It was the greatest. It was just a flawless convention. It was great. And the television ratings were record-setting ratings. You all read that. They were record-setting ratings, and
okay, they weren't. And Brett, to your point, how is that going to be helping anybody who is there? And that's the thing about the people who were there as well. You know, they're so brainwashed with the hate that's spewed on right-wing media that what policies are being discussed that's going to help them? Because I bet if you were to ask most of those people in the audience there, are you a millionaire? Are you a decamillionaire? Are you a billionaire? And I would guarantee you that you'll probably not get, other than the people who Donald Trump personally invited, I doubt you're going to have a lot of decamillionaires and billionaires, you know, who are there. So how is Donald Trump's plans and proposals going to help those people? Whereas President Biden and Kamala Harris have a bottom-out, middle-up approach with 40,000 infrastructure, now maybe 50,000 infrastructure projects, leading to a manufacturing boom that's actually helping revitalize communities. Whereas President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris support not just a minimum wage, but a living wage. They support unions. They support leave when people have children. They want to lower the costs of healthcare. The cost of insulin's been capped. Medicare, the government negotiates care now, resulting in lower costs for prescription drugs across the board. I mean, if you go through issue by issue, the Biden-Harris administration have policies that help the people, but the media, corporate media, has turned all of this into such a circus that we can't even talk about issues and things. But I think President Biden passing the torch has allowed the conversation now to shift in a way that it wouldn't have, not because of President Biden's fault. It's because of how this coverage is. But compare what Trump just said. Here's what President Biden said about his record as a president using objective criteria. Here, play this clip.
When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country, is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, a cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
Could you imagine Donald Trump or almost any other politician saying that? You have the highest off, well, you could have never with Donald Trump, but with President Biden, you're at the pinnacle of your career, the highest office in the land. Your record speaks for itself over the past 3.5, possibly longer now, years. What you've been able to achieve rivals any other presidency. It may be one of the most successful, not like the most successful presidency in history. And I know you have corporate media that both sides and propaganda media that tells a very different story. But if you look at all the objective data that was always used, this is a very successful presidency. One of the lines that I often say is, ask yourself where your toilet paper was 4 years ago under Donald Trump and ask where your 401k is right now. You could use that in other areas too with Donald Trump, which could be also ask, about the manufacturing boom right now. Ask where, where Donald Trump's healthcare plan was that he promised. Where was his infrastructure plan that he promised that he would roll out? He's a fraud. JD Vance is a fraud. But take a look at the results in our economy right now. Strong growth in the second quarter. U.S. economy grew at a 2.8% pace in quarter 2, 2024. It's way above expectations of 1.9%, a big jump from 1.4% in Q1. Consumer spending was the key here, up 2.3% in the quarter, way above expectations. Again, under President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, we have the strongest economy in the world. Business investment is up more than 5%. Nearly 16 million new jobs have been created. Unemployment near 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years. Wages are up higher than before the pandemic, and inflation is down to 3%. Even with the pandemic, that is Donald Trump's fault for the way he mishandled it. Currently, the economy is growing faster than even all of the pre-pandemic projections, thanks to how President Biden and Kamala Harris have steered this economy. And Brett, one of the topics that we talk about a lot, and it is important that we focus on, and I hope people are enjoying that we are focusing on this, because lots of people have been asking us to focus on this, and this is climate change. And the difference between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump could not be more stark. Donald Trump doesn't believe in climate change. Donald Trump says, if anything, it's a good thing because it creates more beachfront property, and Donald Trump says it's fake and it's a hoax. Okay? Vice President Kamala Harris takes it seriously. She has her entire career. Brett, give us a climate change update.
Yeah, and before I even get into Vice President Kamala Harris and her role in helping the climate, I want to first just preface this with a clip from Donald Trump. These are statements he made just days ago, sitting alongside JD Vance on Fox, talking about wind.
You know this. Do you know we need twice as much electricity as we currently have in our country for AI, but the environmentalists won't let you produce it? They want wind. The wind is blowing today. The whole thing is the most expensive hoax in the world. The wind, it kills our birds.
I have something to tell you. Climate change is not a hoax. Climate change is real. And it is our pleasure to be able to highlight the efforts that Kamala Harris and the Biden-Harris administration has made regarding our climate and the stark differences between them and Donald Trump, who, as you just heard, calls it a hoax, says that when the wind stops, energy, like the guy's a weird idiot, as we said. But there was this incredible thread online that I want to share with you all, because it goes through Kamala Harris's history of accomplishments on climate briefly. And so I wanted to take a moment on this episode here to go through them. This was compiled by Leah C. Stokes. She is a professor of climate and energy policy at the University of Santa Barbara, and she outlined Vice President Kamala Harris's long record on climate change and environmental justice. And by the way, I could speak from personal experience. When I had the opportunity to meet Vice President Kamala Harris not too long ago, just a few months ago, climate change and environmental justice were things that kept coming out of her mouth. She kept speaking about these two topics. I could tell they were very important to her. When you look at her record, it shows. So you go back to 2005, then District Attorney Kamala Harris in California set up a brand new division there to prosecute environmental crimes in California. And I want to remind you, 2005. That's 2 decades ago. Here was a quote from her then. She said, quote, "Crimes against the environment are crimes against communities," which, as Leah Stokes notes, that's as true today as it was then. Harris's vision for climate action and environmental justice is deeply embedded in our climate laws. A green bank, she co-sponsored that as a senator, cleaning up pollutions from ports. She did that as Attorney General in 2011 in LA and Long Beach. And her influence, one of the incredible things about this passing of the torch moment that we're seeing, is her influence is all over all of these Biden-Harris policies that we have talked about for so long on this show, and that finally the Biden-Harris administration is getting credit for, like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is perhaps it is the biggest legislation for climate that we have seen in American history. And so as a senator, then as vice president, Kamala Harris championed clean school buses. She secured $5 billion for that effort. So thanks to the vice president, 200,000 kids now every single day are riding to and from school on clean electric buses. As a senator, Harris also authored legislation to replace lead pipes. As you know from listening to our show, the replacing of lead pipes is something that is currently happening under the Biden-Harris administration, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. They have $15 billion right now being spent on this effort to replace lead pipes. I mean, how are you against replacing lead pipes? Trump is against replacing lead pipes. It's the craziest thing. The Biden-Harris administration is on track to replace 1.7 million lead pipes across the country. And I want to remind you, of course, it has an incredible impact on the country, which is important, which is existential, quite frankly, to get our climate under control and to fix these things. I mean, people's lives are on the line if they're drinking water from lead pipes. But this is also very important topics that voters want to hear about, and that voters have felt like they have been ignored for so long. And all these policies are finally being implemented and are being championed by Kamala Harris. So we see now Gen Z. This is a topic that Gen Z is all over. Over half of young voters say the issue of climate change is very important to them personally. 36% say it's one of their top issues that is going to matter most to them when they step into the polls this year. Despite their kind of gloomy outlook that they've had, this whole idea that we are transitioning to clean energy and the efforts of the administration have provided them with the optimism that things are not going to be a disaster for them in the future. And we see that 57% of young people feel worried about the future for their generation. So it appears now finally Kamala Harris is providing Gen Z and frankly all Americans with this much needed feeling of hope that is finally washing over all of us. So I think these are important things to be noting. We got to be talking about climate constantly. We have to be talking about environmental justice, and the same way that we've been talking about the economy and the successes of the economy. And it finally took all of this time, and it took Biden dropping out of the race in order for the media to finally run headlines like the CNN headline that we've been showing throughout this episode. The quote, "The U.S. economy is pulling off something historic." Hopefully we begin to see the same sort of headlines in the mainstream press about these efforts for the climate. That's why we got to stay laser focused. We need to keep pushing. We need to keep getting these messages out there. And that's why this is so important. That's why you all are so important in getting these clips out there and sharing this with a friend and making sure that folks are listening, watching the MeidasTouch podcast, sharing all these videos. We're doing what we can on our end, and we could tell with the energy that you have had in recent days that you are stepping up to the plate and you are sharing this stuff, and it's getting out to more people than ever. I feel this momentum shift.
Patreon.com/MeidasTouch is your destination for the MeidasTouch after show, as well as other exclusive content. And look, it helps build this independent media platform. We don't have outside investors. And so the way we build this is through the emojis you see by clicking that $sign on YouTube, becoming a YouTube member, our pro-democracy sponsors, and our Patreon, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And if you separately wanted to join the YouTube and the Patreon are different things with the YouTube memberships. You can gift others YouTube memberships as well, and you can do that now. Brett and I are going to record an after show. We'll do that. That'll be fun. We could talk about the new video that we made and other videos and shorts that we have that we're planning that are coming up on the horizon. Store.MeidasTouch.com to get your pro-democracy gear, 100% union made, 100% made.
By the way, not lot of great Kamala themed gear on there right now. I'm loving it. We got the Brat tee, Brat Summer for the folks, for those who know. If you know, you know. We got a whole bunch of other stuff here. You can see some little pictures over here. Vote for the prosecutor, not the criminal. We got the childless cat lady. That's one of our best sellers right there. The childless cat lady merch. It's a great one. The unburdened hats. You got the prosecutor, criminal, coffee mugs, and more. Go check that out. Store.MeidasTouch.com.
Love it. And join some of our partner YouTube channels. One of the things we do here to expand as well is we partner with a bunch of YouTube channels. So there's the Michael Cohen YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Michael Cohen's about to hit 100,000 subscribers. Check that out. Adam Mockler. Adam Mockler is our Gen Z reporter at the MeidasTouch Network. Subscribe to his channel. Talking Feds, when you really want to geek out on the law, we got Harry Littman. Go subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. We've got True Crime MTN, the True Crime channel that we partner with David Arenberg about. Search True Crime MTN. We've got Coalition of the Sane that we do with Denver Riggleman. Search Coalition of the Sane and subscribe there. Did I leave any out there, Brett?
You said Brando, right? I'm trying to go over. I think we got him. And if we forgot any, we apologize, and we will make sure to hit him next time.
Absolutely. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers. Spread the word. Tell friends, family, coworkers, anybody in your life, neighbors, whoever, about the MeidasTouch Network. Let's keep building this together. We're so grateful for all of you, Meidas Mighty, and we'll see you next time on the MeidasTouch Podcast. Have a good one, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty!
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well.